You've never seen it?
I've never seen it.
Oh, my.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the most revolutionary thing ever to be uploaded to the internet. Because the internet needed 2 more white guys talking about movies. Isn't that correct, Tony?
Yes, it is.
Yes. Okay, so, the list, episode 1. What is the list, you may be asking? Well, it may not just be ripping off Welcome to the Basement, which is certainly what it started out as. The list, in essence, is I have a list of films I have never seen before. He has a list of films he has never seen before. Now, in that list of films I have never seen before, he is going to make a decision out of all of those movies that he likes, what he wants me to watch with him, and vice versa on his side.
And it's all going to be a surprise the day of.
Yes. Now, that would normally be the case, but we're idiots.
What? Just a little tip into the industry. Make sure everything's recording, because one thing not going means the whole thing's done.
Yes.
And with something where the whole point is open up the thing and have the surprise on camera.
So I am going to read off this intro as I did last time, with Tony knowing what it is, and of course, you beautiful people know in the audience what it is, because it's in the fucking title. Paul Verhoeven, a Dutch filmmaker, born July 18th, 1938, directed 8 films in the Netherlands before coming to America to make his first English-language film. Now, Verhoeven had grown up in the midst of World War II, in the midst of fascism, so that, and all of those themes that come with that, sort of ended up playing a role over a lot of his films, stuff like fascism, dictatorship, anti-Semitism, all that kind of stuff, but it specifically affected more so his American films, and his first American film out of all of those today, which is Robocop. We are watching the beautiful 4K transfer done by Arrow Video. If you have not watched this version, or haven't watched it at all, pick up this version specifically if you have the ability to watch it in 4K, because it's gorgeous. If you have not watched this movie, you may want to leave, bitches. But Tony, someone who hasn't watched this movie themselves, what is your sort of cultural experience with this outside of it? What do you know about Robocop?
Mostly, the things I know about Robocop are the things that you'd see flicking through TV at like 2 o'clock in the morning when you're not supposed to be watching TV. They're memes on the internet. They're the scenes that everyone knows about. Yeah. But I don't have context for the whole film laid out. Yes. I know certain shots and I know certain things, but I don't have the meaning or the context behind any of those things. So, in essence, I haven't watched the movie. Yeah. And I think that counts, you know?
Yeah, no, 100%.
For a list movie, really to say that you've watched it means you've watched it and you can like put together the plot in your mind. You remember how things went. Yeah. And so, that being said, and considering I've never watched the whole movie, considering I have basically a blank slate on what it's going to be, I think it's a perfect way to start this series.
While it was not a surprise that Tony knows what the movie is, what will be a surprise to you people are his thoughts. Will he like it? Will he hate it? We don't know. See, Tony's a weeb at his core.
You're going to see a lot of animated films on my list for Colin.
Which is fantastic and great. But with him being a weeb at his core, will he enjoy something that is quintessentially American, made by a man from the Netherlands? We'll never know until we watch it. So, as I said earlier, if you've already watched this and don't want to rewatch it with us by the time we come back, leave, bitches. But if you haven't and you want to rewatch it yourself, well, dead or alive, man, you're coming with me. We're going to be watching Robocop.
We get the best of both worlds. The fastest reflexes modern technology has to offer, onboard computer-assisted memory, and a lifetime of on-the-street law enforcement programming. It is my great pleasure to present to you Robocop.
This guy is really good.
He's not a guy, he's a machine.
Old Detroit has a cancer.
Cancer is crime.
Let the woman go. You are under arrest.
You better back up, pal!
Your move, creep.
What are your prime directives?
You have the right to remain silent. You have the right to an attorney.
What is this shit?
Anything you say may be used against you.
He's a cyborg, you idiot. He recorded every word you said.
You're dead. We killed you.
His memory's admissible as evidence. You're gonna have to kill it. Get out of the car, for God's sake!
Robocop, the future of law enforcement.
Nice shooting, Tony. So, what's your name? What are your thoughts on the film directed by Paul Verhoeven, his introduction to American cinema, Robocop?
That name does not fit Robocop. Robocop is probably one of the most American films I've seen, and it is it is just shocking to see it come out of somebody with that name. It's really you had on the list some other director who made Wild Strawberries.
Ingmar Bergman.
And I am a dingus, and I thought that must be what we're watching. As soon as he had that, as soon as I heard that, I was like, oh, we're gonna watch some foreign film. I didn't expect Robocop, and I didn't expect such a great film.
I'm not sure if I brought it up in this take. It could have been the last Fudge take, but I brought up the similarities between this and Dark Knight Returns. I don't know how visible that was to you. I am a bit more of a fan of that book than you are. It's not that you don't enjoy it. It's just that was like
it's his childhood, man. It's his whole thing. Yeah.
The fact that they came out in such like a close time, I would have assumed that someone like Frank Miller would have taken stuff from RoboCop, but it's actually vice versa. But I don't know if Verhoeven's read that or reads comics or has any kind of knowledge of that is the weirdest thing.
I mean, similar circumstances bring up similar story beats. You know, people living in the same world will oftentimes get, you know, bits and pieces of like thoughts and ideas that have just been passing around. You know, it's like a butterfly effect. Somebody says something, and then, you know, somewhere along the line, two people just come up with it.
And I find sort of the interest in like sort of I want to say almost like the insanity of the whole thing is where Frank Miller eventually went with varying interpretations on what the political theme for Dark Knight Returns could be. But that movie is very much commenting on the police state, or that book is very much commenting on the police state. Frank Miller ended up going off in this crazy conservative direction that they're trying to repair with like PR stuff now with him. To whatever effect, I don't know the man's personal beliefs, but the guy wrote a book called Holy Terror right after 9/11. It's offensive. Don't read it. It's real fucked. It's just it's not good. But the thing that I find so fascinating about it is that like someone like Miller went in such an opposite direction, while Verhoeven's sort of like, whether it was an influence on that or not, just went in the continually same direction of just making these movies that were very seriously commenting on the, you know, he made Starship Troopers after this, he made Hollow Man eventually, he made Showgirls, which I need to watch myself. I haven't seen it. I know it's by a lot of people viewed as sort of this like awful movie, but I'm curious to see if there's some kind of satirical edge that people just haven't really been paying attention to. I don't know. I want to give it a watch myself beyond that.
Man lives through World War II. Yeah. His childhood is World War II.
1939.
1939. Yeah. Comes to America and starts seeing, hey, this seems familiar. Hey, this seems familiar. Hey, this seems familiar. And it is funny how a lot of those scenes that play out, corporations owning the police, so many things seem like so ridiculous for the 1980s, way over the top. But now you look at it and you think, That kind of just, that's,
Yeah. The introductory scene to the movie is kind of this showing how media works in this world and showing how, we're showing these horrific acts of violence, these horrific crimes going on around the world in our own country, and then immediately cutting to this quote-unquote wholesome thing. The television in this world outside of it, the basic media, is the same 10-minute clip from a sitcom over and over and over again.
It's a nightmare box. Yeah. It's insane. Yeah. And then you look at like modern media today, like modern television, and it's much the same, I think there's something about like your emotions don't go up happy all the way back down to sad. They rise and they fall in intensity. And so you could very easily profit off of getting someone very, very angry and then switching right over. Oh, by the way, here's something to make you very, very happy. And there's a lot to be weaponized there. And they just hit the nail on the head. They got like American TV within seconds. You can't look at that and say, oh, you'll be laughing and dying. But
the artificial heart that they had was referred to as a sports model.
The sports model. The sports model heart.
And the thing with this movie that I think is so very important as opposed to a lot of modern attempts at satire, which a lot of times to me fall flat, not because of the political message. You can disagree or agree with the political message, that doesn't matter. If it's executed poorly, someone like an Adam McKay, who I think doing these over-the-top comedies executes it super well. He directed Anchorman 2, Step Brothers. Just that whole genre of Bush satirization. But the problem I think he ran into was when he started directing what were dubbed more serious, sort of like Oscar kind of films like Vice or Don't Look Up. He did satire without what I think is like the most important element to it. Which is, if you do satire, but do satire without having sincerity, without a character you can latch on to, not a character that is like a mouthpiece for something you may even agree with, but is a character who is legitimately there to show humanity. That's where this movie and Paul Verhoeven always succeeds with. Murphy is a character I give a fuck about. For the little bit you get introduced to him and finding out about his entire past as the film goes on, you really just get a sense for who this dude was. And it's a very basic archetype. He's a father. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter that stuff is basic as long as you buy it as sincere. When I was really starting to get back harder into movies a few years ago than I had been for a bit, I was falling off. One of the things that I brought up to you is I just said, like, sincerity is something that is so important in film that I feel like we're losing. That's why someone like Sam Raimi or Lynch is my favorite director. Someone like Lynch, who's often criticized for being, like, a bit too cold-shouldered and just focusing on exclusively thematic shit, you end up having, you watch his movies and you actually listen to him talk. He's like one of the most salt-of-the-earth, humble people you'll ever watch talking about his own films.
He's never going to be like the biggest thing, and he has no aspirations of doing it. He has aspirations of making great films and having people see them. Yeah. It's sincerity, and that's part of what makes Murphy's character so very good. Is everything's very basic, as far as he's a father. He had a son, he had a wife, and for lack of a reason, they kind of took that away from him. Yeah. And the they is, it can be interpreted that the they is the crime. It can be determined that it's like whatever.
But it's all one is the thing. The corporations and the crime being so interconnected, it's like regardless of whether or not Murphy was the planned one to get taken over for the Robocop program, regardless, it would have been someone in his position.
Murphy is just a very unlucky one son of a bitch that had to do it. Yeah. He had the skills and he was, fresh meat.
No, there's so many like little lines of dialogue that I think are so important to kind of establishing how this world works. Stuff like he signed the police waivers when he started working here, therefore his body is ours and he consensually can't do anything without it.
Get rid of the other arm.
Yes. Get rid of the other arm. Fucking, what is it? He's in the hospital, and instead of like trying to save his life, they're literally just, okay, we're going to shock him to a flat line.
Because that will get him into the program sooner. And then, of course, there is the line. What is it? you are gonna be one bad son of a bitch.
You are one bad motherfucker.
One bad mother. Yeah.
Speaking of Bob, or our boy Albert, in our case of knowing him, the Twin Peaks alumni in this movie, just hamming it the fuck up, are so good. We are fans of Twin Peaks. If you have not watched Twin Peaks, go watch Twin Peaks. Not going to spoil anything here for that show. We're going to avoid making references because, Mother of God, go into that show blind, people.
Just do it. Just go.
Are there any particular thoughts that you have on the filmmaking? I know that's not necessarily your area of expertise, but
filmmaking. I really like the effects on both television and on Murphy's point of view. They spend a lot of time making those things look and feel a lot like it's real TV. When I was growing up, I loved TV. That's all I did. I watched television, and we had just one of those old box, And so I'm very familiar with the way that thing glows and the way it just looks. And I just felt like I was watching late night television that I should not have been watching. Yes. As I did many a time when I was like 10, 12 years old, at 2 a.m. watching whatever was on. Yeah. And with his vision, just like little bits and pieces of information, not to clutter the screen or anything. I really like those effects as well. Just to give you an idea of what he's thinking and to give you an idea what a robot is thinking in a clear way that is not too intrusive. Yes. And also that doesn't take away from the fact that this is still Murphy,
Yeah.
Another thing I like, obviously, explosions, they look great.
Yes.
Gore just looks great.
Yeah.
We watched the extended cut because apparently there's a lot of extra work that gets put into that.
It's legitimately just like every gore shot goes on for probably about 20 seconds, more than the MPAA wanted them to, but
they said, well, might as well shoot it anyways.
Yeah. I've got 90 squibs hooked up to this one man that Ed 209 is just going to annihilate with his twin cannons.
Hey, makeup guy, can you make a chunk of flesh do this?
Yes. No, it's fucking great. And it's kind of the thing that the 80s by that point had mastered the gas explosion and making that look fucking great, and nothing about it just feels artificial, and it's just so big. Speaking of gas explosion, the gas station explosion, after you have one of our boys who recognized Murphy from earlier, because in his words, we killed you. He just ends up escaping, and then Robocop ends up causing the place to just get blown to smithereens, sort of showing for the fact that he got no consequences for that, because in this future, cops don't have to care about fucking property, destruction of property, which is ironic, because now it's vice versa.
They have insurance. Your insurance will pay for it, old man.
Oh, Spike Lee, we are not trying to use your dialogue to fucking... I'm sorry. That was wrong. That was very wrong. One of the things I absolutely adore about this movie is just stuff in props and costumes and everything that do storytelling work without saying anything. Our guy gets out of jail, rips open his fucking shirt, and he talks about, even let me keep the shirt that I had on the way out. And you see his prison jumpsuit uniform. It has a barcode on it.
How much more on the nose can you be? Yeah. And I guess that's the point. You got to be a little on the nose if you want to be very sincere about these things.
The brand new car is the 6000 SUX spelled. Yeah, it's the 6000 sucks. That's fucking fantastic. God, no, I just adore everything about this movie. Peter Weller's fucking performance as Murphy, but more importantly as Robocop. He's there as Murphy to make you care initially. He's giving a good but fairly standard performance for what the movie's asking for. But the thing about it that makes it work so well is the fact that when he's Robocop, he has the static servo movements down so fucking perfectly.
Yes.
I've come to notice over the years that movies that I love tend not to be these films that are big, over-the-top, mind-boggling plot twist movies and everything. They're films that just tell really solid stories. A movie like Die Hard, which, once again, a film this motherfucker has not seen. Yeah. Don't shit on him for it. That's what this show's for. But it's Die Hard is just a movie that in itself is so solidly structured and so solidly constructed down to like a writing level, just a filmmaking level. Everything about it is made to just be this very, very solid core. So many people try and focus so much on shocking you or making this movie that is going to end up like defying all odds that they forget to make a solid movie at its core. Like, Empire Strikes Back is great, and Empire Strikes Back is fucking awesome, but the first Star Wars is so fucking good because it is this solid movie. Empire Strikes Back is only just as good because they try and make this film that is equally as solid at its core. And I'm a Return of the Jedi boy, but I will admit that movie has narrative problems. So, and that's kind of the thing.
Yeah, if you don't have if you don't have a story, then you don't have a movie. And if you don't have a movie, why bother?
And one of the big things is people not understanding the difference between plot and story. Because a lot of people, when they describe what they say is story, they're actually describing plot. And plot is a very rigid narrative thing. It's the skeleton. It is like what your story is moving from. It is what you are doing in your story, but moving from A to B. The story is what is the movie about. You know, this movie, and story and theme are so interweaved together that you make a movie like Terminator. And what is Terminator about? It is about saving mankind through like a one simple little decision that ends up causing just a ripple effect throughout everything. It's about destiny not being something that really exists, and you make your own fate.
So what is RoboCop about? It's a bit about it is a bit about police corruption. Yeah. It is a bit about corporatocracy. Yeah. It is a bit about just the state of affairs in current year 1985, 1986. It is about a lot of things, and the story is really, really solid, but I think at its core, what it's really about is one man trying to make sense of it and trying to find his way through it.
A man trying to rediscover his humanity that he didn't know he had in the first place, which without that, everything else can fall apart and feel hollow. Like, when you have this film that solidly at its core is about things that even you can agree with, but you don't have a character like Murphy there as sort of the solid anchor to like lift you back into this and be like, no, there's humanity here. Your story then is just about preaching. And there's nothing wrong with preaching if your message is okay, but being preached at without looking at someone and being like, hey, that guy is a kid, that guy has a wife, he's got everything, and he has something that was taken away from him. The corporate people dragging you away, and your humanity doesn't matter if you don't have people to go back to when you're trying to go back in the first place.
You can't go full nihilist a lot of the time. It's very difficult. Yeah. There's a man named Emp Lemon on the internet. He made a video about Rick and Morty, and at some point he said, if the show is telling you that nothing matters, then one starts to think, does the show matter?
Yeah.
And now it's time to turn it off. Yeah. You need to have you need to balance cynicism and nihilism with hope and with resolve and with the human spirit a lot of the time. And that's what's at the core of RoboCop. I mean, they left a little bit of him, just enough. Yeah. The spirit of Murphy.
It's that expecting you to care, I think, is the biggest thing. You can make a movie about nihilism and have everything be miserable. I mean, that's what about, I think it's 100 Days of Sodom is about, which one of my friends watched. It's apparently just this well-crafted, well-executed movie, but it's fucking miserable. Like, it's just one of the worst experiences he's ever had while watching a movie. He's like, I feel like I should watch it again, but I don't want to watch it again. Yeah. And with that, it's why stuff like big popcorn blockbuster action storytelling kind of requires this, like, not this lack of cynicism at its core. If you don't have that lack of cynicism at its core, then you're kind of like missing the point. That being said, you can make stories about this, but a story sort of centered around a guy losing his humanity and trying to regain it back. It's why the fucking remake of RoboCop is so fucking bad.
No idea.
Not for this show, but I may show it to you out of like morbid curiosity at some point.
Every now and again, Colin starts talking about something that's, oh, but this thing is awful. I really want just a buffering logo to just start loading right up here. Do I remember that? Have I seen that?
Remember to do that in post, motherfucker. I'm not going to.
Hey, Prezzo. Put a thing in the corner.
We do not have that man from Cold Ones. The amount of effort that motherfucker puts in that I am not going to do.
No.
No, I have a lot of thoughts on this movie. A lot of shit that I'm sure I can't really cram in. But it's going to be the thing that I talk about a lot in these, which is I dig sincerity. Fucking Sam Raimi's Spider-Man was my 4th favorite movie of all time for that reason. And I went through a long period where I said that movie was garbage because I was an idiot child. When you're a teenager, you think a lot of stuff is stupid that I'm going to promise you as an adult you're suddenly going to realize.
Yeah, go back and watch those old movies from whenever you were born.
Yeah. Some of them turn out to be shit, but...
A lot of them are, but a lot of them are really, really good.
Yes.
A lot of them are. And do the same thing with music, too. Do the same thing with whatever came out that you thought was like garbo, pop, whatever. Like, return to it, because you can find bits and pieces of great stuff.
I did not get an emo phase until I was in my early 20s, if that says anything.
And
So.
this man grew up literally right as I was saying to girls, wait, hold on, who's My Chemical Romance? I don't care. Yeah. They look stupid.
I wish I had a video of you and I crying at that fucking concert with our arms around each other.
Please don't.
God.
Please don't. Please don't edit that in. Prezzo, don't edit that in.
Watch shit. It's good. Movies are awesome. That's my message. Watch movies.
Movies are awesome. My final message. Goodbye. And then Prezzo, edit that in.
In the words of Keanu Reeves, movies. I love movies. I love watching them, and I love making them. Please stick around till next month, where the new episode of the list will come out. Anything else you want to say, Tony?
Chef.
And we just cut it right after chef. Halfway through the word chef.